Hey boys and girls, it's Night Stalker here. Welcome along today to my Elite Rattan Pikemen guide. Check it out. These little guys here are actually a little bit of a hidden gem, you might say. I really like them. They do great damage, and I'm not quite sure why they get so overlooked. Perhaps it's because they're a pikeman unit that doesn't have a brace, and people think, oh, well, that's the end of it. But when you get these guys all tooled up and you get some good doctrines, or even without, because these were one of the very, very first units I ever elited, and they've always served me really well. I think this unit can be really great. As you can see, today I've got them in the Christmas elf gingerbread man outfits. So we're going to roll with that for today. Don't let that put you off. They're a lot nastier than they look right now with their little gingerbread eyes. First of all, before we start anything else, let's go look at the tech tree, some doctrines, and their veterancy lines. Okay, so we're talking about a tech tree unit, so the first thing we should probably do is look at the tech tree. Up here, unit tree, all the way down the bottom for the rattan line. You'll get these cool little things along the way. Reduces damage taken from ranged weapon by 3%, and I'm not quite sure what that one does, probably nothing, but it's got a little bit of fluff and stuff there for you. So that one's quite important because rattan, all of the rattan units are highly resistant to piercing damage. When I say highly resistant, it's the rattan pikemen are a green tier unit, but they're 500 or 600 armor, right? Compared to their slashing, which is about 300, and their blunt, which is about 100. So they do really well against other pikes, is a good one to do, and also they don't take a lot of damage from archers, especially lower tier archers. Guns, however, generally punch straight through their armor. Now the three nodes that will affect the rattan pikemen are this one here, improved alloys. It just increases their piercing damage by 2%. Good to have. This one here is really important, increases the rattan pikeman weakness duration by 1 second, by 3. Okay, and there's a little bit of ambiguity around the rattan pikemen and how they apply their additional effects, and you'll see it over in the veteran line as well. One of the things about them is that they do multiple hits with their pikes first thing, and you can level that up. And they also get a attack speed bonus as well, so 15% attack speed bonus. But back to this one, is that when they attack on the veterancy line, they can apply an additional effect, and that additional effect is quite dictated to by the veteran line. And it'll do poison damage, it will slow the target, and it will also reduce their damage. So we'll talk about that now. Let's pop on over to the rattan pikemen. Where are they here? Ratman Pikes. There we are, Ratman, Elite Ratman Pikes. So I've got the Christmas gingerbread man outfit on them. It's very cute. You can get it at Christmas in the Christmas sales. Their unit kits are only 717 each, so they're very, very good for early play, and also for veterans if you're trying to save up bronze and things like that. Take units like this in. They're quite effective for their leadership, and they're very cheap to replace. We'll have a look at the doctrines I've got on them. This is fairly standard for what you can do as an early game player. Anything that increases their piercing damage and their piercing armor and penetration is great. There's not a lot of doctrines they can have. For example, why would you put a brace doctrine on them even though they're a pike? They don't have a brace. They don't even have a formation. We'll talk about that in the training room, if we haven't already. And we're going to increase slashing defense by 80 because their slashing defense is a little low. And one thing that you may not know about pikes, all pikes in the game, is that if they hit cavalry, they will reduce their movement by either 40 or 60%. It might actually be, it did get a nerf, 30 or 60. The high tier pikes will reduce cavalry speed by 60, and the lower ones 30-ish. I'll try and look it up and put a little banner down the bottom. Oh, and here's that information that I was telling you about that I would insert just quickly. I'll pop this back into the video. You're going to deal 16% increased damage to cavalry, and damaged cavalry will also be slowed by 45% for 2 seconds. Now that's all you need to be able to slow down a cavalry charge for the rest of your team or your unit itself to jump on the cavalry and poke them a whole lot. Really important and really good to have on such a low tier unit. So I've also got increases damage dealt to cavalry by 120. It's very easy to dodge out of the way of cavalry charges with this unit because they're very fast, like really fast. Let's have a look at the veterancy lines. Okay, so as you can see on the stats on the right hand side there, they've got a reasonable level of hit points, they've got a reasonable unit strength, they're very cheap, and 5.8 speed is very quick. If I can draw your attention down to the defense attributes, you'll notice quite high piercing and pretty low slash and defense and even lower blunt defense. So they don't stand up to a lot of punishment from things like heroes or high tier units, but if you're getting your Rattan Pikemen in combat with those, you've gone wrong somewhere anyway. So let's have a look at the veterancy lines. All right, here we go. On the top line, by the way, I should tell you that really for this unit, there's only one build. The top line is no good. The bottom line is better. Let's get to that in a moment. The top line, you're going to get plus 5% movement speed. You're going to get plus 8% to your piercing damage, plus 6% health. You'll get 2 additional soldiers in the unit. You're going to get plus 10% piercing armor penetration, which is useful. Higher chance of inflicting bonus hits. Minus 10% damage from enemies who are poisoned, and you'll also get that your additional effects can slow the target. I'll talk about how those work on the bottom line. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Here we go. Here's the bottom line. We get plus 5% movement speed. We get a higher chance of inflicting bonus hits. Now that's important because the bonus hits are really where these guys are all about. That's a little bit different to other pike units. We're going to get minus 10% damage on enemies who are poisoned. Really, really good because they actually have a reasonable chance of inflicting that. I would put it at about 20%, 1 in 5 hits, but you've got a big unit of 30. I can't tell you exactly, there's no detail on it. The additional effects can slow the target, also really important. Your additional effects can cause the target to sustain poison damage, which is great. The poison damage isn't very damaging. Its ticks are not very high. You're also going to get minus 10% damage from poison. Like if you get poisoned, you're going to take less damage. It's useless. Don't even worry about it. Plus 2 soldiers in the unit. The poison effects can now stack up to 3 times. Now that is critical. It's the final one on the thing here, and that's really important because now you're getting minus 30% from damage from enemies who are poisoned. You're going to get triple the slow effect, and you're going to get triple the poison effect too. Really, really important to have that one. You're going to get plus 4% piercing damage, and you're also going to get plus 3% health. Now, as you can see, that poison tick with the additional effect is really important to how this unit works. Let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so let's go have a look at what they're all about. Now, there's not many doctrines that I can show you with this unit. And, sorry, not many, what do you call it? Formations. That's what I'm looking for. The word I'm looking for is formations. There's not many formations I can show you with this unit because they don't have any. Let's have a look at what they do just in open combat as a unit moves into them. Just like every other pike, something to remember about the Rattan Pikemen is that they do the majority of their damage at the very tip of the pike, so right here. So here is the line at which the front rank will do the highest damage. And the closer the target gets to your pikemen, the less damage that they do. And that's true of all pikes. If you haven't seen my pike tutorial video, it'll teach you about all the mechanics of pikes. I'll put a little link just up at the top here of the screen, you see it, and that's a video that may help you learn a bit more about pike mechanics. But for now, the thing that you have to know about this unit is it works best when you pile in on the enemy. And that might be a little bit counterintuitive when they do most of the damage at the tip of the pike. But they tend to strike for things that they do the most damage against. See how I move them in amongst the unit? And watch how they just demolish it. Move them all the way in, especially against units that have shields. This is particularly important, to be able to attack around and inside the unit. We'll just give them a little heal and we'll go there again. Now the way to move into the unit and attack them like that is simply hold down the X key and move your mouse, and you can Move the little placement around, and once they get inside the unit, you just press V for attack. And they'll just happy, stabby, stabby, everything in their range. See how we surround them now? And look at those little ticks as well. They have a great little poison with multi-roll, as we've just discussed, and that cannot be discounted. Do you want to see that done again? They don't have, they don't actually have a lot of things I can teach you in this room, other than to just move them in and let them go. If you're gonna, well, I'll press C and get them to follow me, and we'll move through the unit ourselves, and let's just see what happens as they follow in. See how they'll come all the way to you, and once they're to you, they'll then start attacking. And that's something that you can use as well. And then they'll start following you again. Let's do that one more time, just allowing the unit to move into us. Here they come. Maybe we'll go up to meet them, so we're not sitting waiting for too long. Here we go. You've seen this unit attack out of formation and just moving in amongst the enemy. And you'll notice how it takes a lot longer to get through the unit when you're not moving inside the enemy unit and using your attack. You know, they're hitting from only units in the front generally, and if they've got a shield, it takes a little while to chip through that. That's kind of the end of that. Let's move on to the next segment, where I'll show you some clips of these guys in battle. Okay, here we are in our first clip, pushing up the siege tower on the wonderful Conqueror castle siege. Playing longbow today, whatever. So, the reason I'm sort of just hanging out here is obviously because I can kill a bunch of archers, but also I'm waiting for the right time to get my pikes in. The whole enemy team there seem to be focused in the other direction. So let's bide our time and find out what happens when they turn their backs. Here we go. Here's the moment we've all been waiting for. We'll call the Rattan Pikemen up, and we're going to push them, as we saw in the Shadow Training Room, deep into the enemy formation.
The enemy captured the point.
Here we go, and they've made it easy for us. So now while our Rattan Pikemen clean up all of those guys down there, you'll see at least half of them are not very strong units, and in this context, when the units are not very strong in the early game, you can pretty much massacre everything. Look at those kills just ticking up, time and time and time again. But the important thing here is look how these heroes are struggling to kill the unit. The reason for that is we've got multiple stacking debuffs, right? Because you can apply those debuffs up to 3 times. So these heroes are probably at this point doing minus 30% damage, and short swords are not known for their immense damage output in the first place. But they're being completely overwhelmed. You know, the unit's not going to last forever. We're up to, what do we do, 50 kills or something stupid with the unit? And then it's time to leave. So, especially if you can get your Rattan Pikemen into softer units, or into the back of units, and in amongst them, even if they've got hero support, you notice there was at least another spear in there, they will do very, very nicely. What do we get? 73 kills total or something like that. I think we might have started with about 20. Let's move on to the next clip. Okay, so what I want to show you in this next clip is how once you can get around a sword and shield unit, how much damage you can do to them, and how the unit really can't fight back too much. There's only half a unit of paladins. We've killed half of them already, but watch when we push the unit through. You wouldn't expect this many paladins to go down to a small green tier unit, but they very, very quickly annihilate the rest of the unit. We're going to send them back, and we're going to fast forward till they come back again. Alright, back to normal speed. Now here we notice some lovely of these crossbows protected by the main pikemen. And as we know, Rattan Pikemen are very effective at resisting ranged damage. So here we go, we're going to push them all the way into the unit, and we're just going to start massacring. Now, longswords don't do a lot of damage. You've got to remember that these pikes are doing most of this damage on their own. They're resistant to those arrows coming in, they were resistant to the bolts coming in, and they're resistant to the domain pikemen's pike thrusts. And as you can see, we managed to do away with a whole unit of crossbows, a whole unit of pikes, and it was only when the shields pushed in that we really got undone. So that's what I wanted to show you with this clip. Let's move on to the next one. For our last clip today, here we are on Sun City Siege, and we've got our Rattan Pikes. We're sort of roving, looking for an unwary unit of cavalry or things like that, because these guys will tear apart like cavalry, and they will highly inconvenience heavy cavalry. And we notice a unit of pikemen. And as we know from our last clip and from the rest of the video, is that Rattan Pikemen are resistant to piercing damage. So here we go. We don't want to get them too mixed in because I don't want to get them chopped up by the spear. They'll happily just fight this unit and destroy them on their own, especially with my hero being used to stun them. And there we go. Once most of their defences were down, we surrounded them and pushed in. We got attacked in the back by some halberdiers, and those halberdiers are now dead. Again, resistant to piercing damage. We've still got 2/3 of the unit left. So here we go, looking for the cavalry kills, but the cavalry don't come in. So let's fast forward to the next part of the clip. Let's go. And here we drop back into normal time. We found ourselves here a unit of palace guards. Now this clip was made before these palace guards got a buff, so keep that in mind. But we also notice another unit of pikes and things. And as we know, we're not particularly afraid of pikes, even higher level pikes, but these ones are not the best. We're going to find ourselves kind of trapped between the enemy if we're not careful. So use the unit's speed to really keep out of danger wherever possible. They'll keep up with you reasonably well when you're on a horse. Now, watch this. See, he's got the bleed tick and the slow. Very easy to kill heroes that are not heavy armoured heroes. So you can keep that in mind just as you go. Now we get jumped on by a maul, as does happen. He's going to get poked a lot. And here we go, there's some spearmen and some pikes. And again, the Rattan Pikemen are resistant to this sort of damage. Now look at this overwhelming force on them. But they're not taking them down, but they're certainly holding them up for an extended period of time and even killing some. You know, they were never going to live there. I just wanted to demonstrate to you that they can kill the heroes easy if you catch them out, because you're going to debuff them, and also that piercing damage resistance is really good for a unit of this tier, and you can absolutely exploit that to your benefit. Also, don't forget that they're a very fast unit. You can dodge in and out of buildings and things to avoid cavalry charges, and then come out and do your anti-cavalry damage to them. There we have it, boys and girls. A little bit of information and a guide of sorts about the Rattan Pikemen. Honestly, this unit is a good unit. It's a good solid unit for its leadership of only 115. And they do good work and they're very fast. So you can use them for flanking and to attack archers and things. And of course, being a pike, you've got to remember that they do that additional slow stun to cavalry. And that's really important. Just while I've got you here, if you play on the My Games server, and I've got a link in my video description below to the My Games marketplace. If you're ever in there and you want to buy some of these fantastic unit skins along the bottom here, or some starter packs to get yourself some extra bronze, premium time, or silver coins, maybe even some resources for crafting, please use my code. I'd be really appreciative of it. It allows me to spend more time working on these videos and bring you some more content that I hope you might enjoy. Anyway, I hope you've learned something new, or you just enjoyed the video. Thanks for coming to my channel.